My family forsook me once my fiancée became pregnant due to my golden kid sibling. He hasn't spoken to his child in 5 years, and now that he's in a coma, my mom wants me to be his child's father. My fiancée had an affair with my brother, and they were only coming clean to me about it because she was pregnant and wanted to keep the kid. I found out about it 5 years ago, a month before my 30th birthday, when I was ready to be married to her. It appears that my brother Ryan, 33 years old, and my ex-fiancée Emily, 30 years old, had been in a relationship from the time we were engaged. Getting engaged was the natural next step for Emily and me since we had been together for so long. From our junior year of high school and through college and beyond. While we were engaged, she chose to cheat on me with my brother. My brother confessed to her a few days after our engagement that he had always had feelings for her. He felt compelled to inform her because she was about to get married, and after that, he couldn't continue to keep these secrets from her. That's the only reason it happened. Then it hit her. She, too, had been experiencing a growing attraction to him. They would allegedly flirt behind my back at family gatherings and the like, but she was unsure about it, so she stayed with me. I found out about all this 5 years ago, a few months before my wedding, when they sat me down with my parents and told me that they were planning to get together. Emily was told she couldn't get married to me anymore because she was in love with Ryan and they were having a baby together. I was so distraught that day that I nearly denied its veracity and told Emily I wanted her to quit our relationship with Ryan and return home with me. My mom had been quite clear that Ryan and Emily were going to be together regardless of what happened, so I had to accept it as it was their decision. My dad at least attempted to console me by seeming embarrassed, but I still couldn't believe my mom was on board with this. But my mom was openly on board with this, and she even went so far as to tell me to remain quiet if I had any concerns. After all, Emily was pregnant, and I didn't want to put her through any further stress. My mother was ecstatic to have a grandson, so she was indifferent to my situation and argued with me relentlessly to prove that everything was well. Because her own parents refused to talk to her after she told them the truth, Emily moved in with my family following that conversation. I didn't have to stress about a thing because my parents paid for the wedding, and it was clear that we had to cancel. But I was kicked out of the family for not talking to them, and we haven't spoken in almost 5 years. After I severed relations with them, there was complete and utter stillness. My father was the only one who had attempted to contact me, but I had no interest in communicating with him. Because Emily and I had been together for so long, it took me a very long time to get over what happened to me. It required a lot of therapy for me to get over my love for her. I still am not sure I'm completely over it, but I'm managing. But the rest of the family stayed in touch with me, and I did learn that she had a kid with my brother. A paternity test verified a month after she gave birth that the child was actually my brother's, not mine, so no one needed to get in touch with me after that either. And now, 5 years later, they're married and very much in love. Everything seemed to be going swimmingly for them until, out of the blue, my mom contacted me around a week ago. This caught me off guard, as my mom had been the most supportive of Emily and Ryan, to an unhealthy degree. I decided to give her a call again after she wrote me an email stating that we needed to talk immediately, just because I was curious. My brother was involved in a terrible accident, and when I phoned her, she broke the news to me while sobbing. Tragically, he had fallen into a coma as a result of the incident. The length of time it would take for him to recover is unknown, and the case was one of hit and run. My mom chose to give me a call and tell me about it barely 3 days after the doctors told me things were fairly urgent right now. This happened last week. I had anticipated that she would want me to pay him a visit and be there for his family. I would have been more than happy to oblige because, despite everything, I still consider this a major matter. Furthermore, I refuse to abandon someone in such a terrible state. Later on, though, my mom took a completely different course of action, insisting that I support Emily and my nephew. She then informed me that, instead of my brother, I should be there for them, and I still didn't get what she meant. She told me I had to be there for Emily and her child in every way since Ryan was practically no longer there when I asked her to elaborate. In addition to the financial support, she wanted me to take over and move in with them so I could be there for them. According to her, she would have taken them in herself if she could have, but she was getting on in years and couldn't handle the responsibility. That's why she wanted to inform me by phone. She was counting on me to decide during our conversation. Obviously, I lost my cool because after 5 years of silence, she suddenly expected me to accomplish something monumental when we eventually did speak. I could see that Emily and her son were going through a tough time and needed support, but I felt bad that someone from their own family, someone she had wronged and never apologized to, was chosen over me. I promptly informed my mother that I would not agree to do something like that and that she was being ridiculous to think otherwise. I hung up and blocked her again since I didn't have time to spend, was already very irate, and didn't want to worsen my mood by continuing our argument over the phone. After that, I attempted to carry on with my day as normal, but thoughts of Ryan and Emily's situation kept popping into my head. I felt terrible for them, but I also knew that I couldn't comply with my mother's request and assume my brother's role in their family. It was too strange. She pretended as though he had died, while in fact he was only slipping into a. He was still very much alive. I opted to phone my dad later that day instead of my mom since I was feeling really uneasy about the whole thing. I believed Dad would be more sensible. It was strange to talk to him again after 5 years of no contact, but after we made small talk, I inquired about Ryan's well-being, and he informed me that things were dire at the moment. I was hoping he would offer some sensible commentary when I recounted the earlier in the day discussion I'd had with my mom, but he just went on to say that my mom was correct to demand that from me. Since my dad was always the more level-headed of the two of them, the fact that he was suddenly saying such strange things came as quite a shock. I questioned his sincerity, and he assured me he meant it. He continued by saying that Emily and I had a history anyway, and that I am also considered family, regardless of how we've been getting along over the last 5 years. The expectations of my mother are not entirely unreasonable, and I am ultimately a family member. If anybody is going to stand up for the family, it should be me. That caught me completely off guard, and I am at a loss for what to do at the moment. I have been avoiding all family members, even those I don't see very often, for the past week out of sheer terror that someone will bring this up with me and make me justify my choices. I feel horrible about not standing up for my family, even though I know they need me emotionally and financially. I don't want to be the one to take the blame, though. What my mom is asking of me is so strange and irrational, yet I feel terrible about turning her down so blatantly, and I truly don't know what to do. Because I am so out of my depth with this whole ordeal, I have avoided going to the hospital to visit my brother. Since this is all so private, I have also avoided talking to my friends about it. I mean, they're all too familiar with the dynamics inside my family and mine following the cancellation of my wedding, but this is, like, really weird. Everyone I ask, whether they're close friends or relatives, is bound to have an opinion. That's why I'm writing this on Reddit right now. Because I feel like I could use some impartial advice on what to do. If I don't figure out a reasonable answer to this mess soon, I'm going to go completely insane, so I could really use some guidance. It took me a long time to pull myself out of that pit of despair, but now I feel like I'm reliving the worst days of my life, when I couldn't stop thinking about Emily and Ryan after I discovered she had been unfaithful. If you must share an opinion with me, however negative, please do it so that I may divert my attention. So you're mad with me, Helen, for staying home and not helping my family out when my brother was in an accident. First update, everyone. Since everything is getting to be too much for me at the moment, I have chosen not to visit my family. It was only until my parents started telling me things that I realized how severe my anxiousness had been in the last week. However, I am currently attempting to manage everything while taking my anti-anxiety medication again. It means the world to me that so many people have taken the time to leave encouraging comments on my initial article and have even sent me direct messages to reassure me that I am not alone in my struggle. For that, I am eternally grateful. I have confided in a few close friends about what's happening because I don't believe I can handle everything on my own. My friends have assured me that I can talk to them whenever I need to, so I can get everything off my chest. Additionally, they have assured me that I am making the proper choice by choosing not to meet with them at this time. Reason being, this is the most self-serving choice I can make right now. Furthermore, regardless of the circumstances, I must prioritize my own needs. I should follow Ryan's and my family's lead and prioritize our needs above all else. Being emotionally present for them isn't something I feel obligated to do, to be honest. They can handle this independently because they have each other. I was the only one whose immediate family wasn't present for her when she found out her husband had cheated on her and the wedding was called off. Even though my brother should have been the one to be kicked out of the family for his wrongdoing, my own parents had betrayed me and preferred my brother over me. Whatever the case may be, I'm attempting to put that behind me now that it has happened. If I return to them, I will fail miserably at that. I have reblocked everyone and intend to maintain my resolve to not communicate with them in any way. No matter how terrible my brother is, I will never be the kind to wish harm on anyone. My sympathies go out to him, and I pray he gets well soon. So, I'm leaving, but I hope everything works out for them. Now that I've dealt with this and the hurt my parents' words caused me, I need to concentrate on my own mental health. I'm thinking of returning to therapy. I feel like I'm not handling this as well as I thought I was, and all those old sentiments are bubbling up again. I really should consult a specialist. For the time being, I will only ensure my own safety. Second update. A few family members have informed me that my brother's health is still quite serious and isn't getting better. Still in the hospital after nearly 2 weeks. The family is going through a terrible time, and I wish I could do something to help, but unfortunately, I am powerless. With the exception of myself, everyone who knows. My family has visited my brother at the hospital at least once in the last 2 weeks to give their sympathies for the awful catastrophe that occurred. That was my plan A, but then I found out through my relatives that my parents have been trash-talking anybody who visits them, painting me as the villain. I was accused of saying things like this was payback for screwing me over 5 years ago and that my brother deserved this, and they are reportedly telling everyone that I had denied their invitation to come visit and be there for the family. Let it be known that I in no way said anything along such lines. As it did not appear to be anything, a few of them reached out to me to verify its veracity. Since I try to be kind to everyone I meet, I would say that. They wanted to know what I thought, so I explained that I hadn't said anything like that and that my parents were making it up to make it seem like I was acting badly. Either as a reaction to anything I said or simply because that's how my parents are. After the first time they messed with my life, I was very disturbed that they were spreading false accusations and making up tales to make me appear to be the bad person. It's a good thing my relatives wanted to know what happened. Otherwise, I doubt anyone in the family would have talked to me about it. Had they simply decided to trust my parents. Although I had avoided communicating with my parents for the last 5 years, my extended family, including my cousins, aunts, and uncles, had always been there for me. I was heartbroken to think I might lose that, and my folks, apparently unable to bear the thought of it, had other plans to ruin it for me. Since I've never done anything to deserve their hatred, I fail to see why people hold such a strong opinion of me. Even though my parents have had a soft place for my brother since we were kids. And even though my brother and I have never been really close. This feels over the top and unwarranted. Third update. Hello there. I wrote an update 2 days ago, and my mom decided to contact me again today. She had no choice but to pay me a visit in order to communicate with me because I had blocked them everywhere. So, when I returned from work, she was there waiting for me. I was so tired from work that I seriously considered just getting back in the car and not even bothering to talk to her. But then she saw me, and I had to approach her. I was determined to keep her out of my house at all costs, so I didn't let her in. I decided to have a chat with her outside in the front yard, but that was a horrible idea since she got so angry that she began shouting at me, which drew the attention of our neighbors. It all started innocently enough. She made small talk with me, and I had to respectfully respond. But then I couldn't control myself and asked her why she had been spreading false rumors about me to make me look bad. I told her it was unfair because no matter how badly my family treated me, I never wanted anything terrible to happen to them. All I wanted was to get over it and start a new chapter in my life, but they were in the way. These emotions, which I had repressed for a long time, finally surfaced as I laid eyes on her. Last but not least, I just informed her that I was upset by their actions and that it was hard for me to consider them family after everything that had transpired. It would be more appropriate to discuss whatever it is she wanted to with me later on. I had just gotten home from work and was not in the mood to argue or engage in any kind of emotionally draining conversation. She had been patiently listening to me until I expressed my want to end our conversation. However, she became quite angry and said she had come to apologize for the same things I had brought up, adding that she and my father had been rationally considering my request. At first, they were quite irritated by my response because I refused to take responsibility for my family and pay a hospital visit to my brother. However, they eventually understood that I was still very upset about how they had treated me over the previous 5 years, which is why I was still refusing to visit. She thought that the family should remain united for the sake of emotional stability, so she came here to talk to me and attempt to resolve our differences. However, she reconsidered and opted to scream at me instead of continuing our conversation when I informed her I didn't want to speak to her. It seems like she was about to cut me off and make sure none of my relatives spoke to me again after my reaction to my brother's injury, so I should just be thankful that I have family at all, she told me. She went on to say that, evidently, she thought I hadn't been upset enough when I heard about my brother's injury, and I had no idea what she meant. I was really taken aback by her expectations. She said that she had hoped for an emotional response from me when she informed me of my brother's injury, but I came across as cold and uncaring during our phone conversation. No matter the nature of our relationship, I expected and have felt the effects of news like that. I don't wish it on anybody, including my family, despite our personal bonds, as I said before. When I learned of his accident, I was really upset. Perhaps that was lost in the phone conversation since she couldn't see my face, but her arguments were totally without merit. She went on to suggest that my lack of support for Emily and my nephew, who she said I should have spoken up for, was evidence of how uncaring I was for the family. She was simply making something up again to explain their behavior, and I'm starting to believe my parents are going crazy over these really pointless and bizarre things. Whatever the case may be, I simply chose to go inside my house and tell her to leave once she began screaming at me. I had already lost interest in continuing the conversation. I eventually became so angry that I decided to lock myself in my house and enter. She continued to shout at me as she tried to follow, but I slammed the door in her face and ordered her to go. I had had enough of interacting with her. After I threatened to contact the authorities over our argument, she finally departed, but not before cursing me and threatening that I would soon face the repercussions of my actions. I have no idea what it implies, and I have no desire to find out. Basically, all I want is to unwind and go on with my life. Welcome to Update 4. Finally, my family got some positive news to share with everyone today, 26 days after the tragedy. My cousins informed me about it. Obviously, they did not inform me directly. The bright side, though, is that my brother has begun to improve. It's encouraging that he is no longer in a coma and is reacting well. My heart is breaking for his success. All I want is for him to develop from here on out. For the simple reason that the past 30 days have been incredibly trying for the whole family, including myself, even though I am no longer considered a member of the family and was banished a long time ago. I mentioned in my last update that my parents have been very controlling and unhinged over the past 26 days. After my last interaction with my mother, I went a few days without hearing from her. Instead, my father called to berate me. Because he dialed a different number than usual, I had no idea it was him. I didn't even have time to hang up when I discovered it was him since he started screaming at me practically soon after I answered the phone. Also, he was rather cunning about it. He wanted to catch me off guard so he could yell at me. His plan all along was to contact me at 5 in the morning instead of some random time during the day. He knew I would be asleep at that hour, and when I woke up to accept his call, my head would be all mixed up. I was yelled at by my dad, who phoned me at 5 in the morning, a few days after my contact with my mom. I eventually took the fourth call after almost 3, and he began by saying I was an ungrateful child and that he wished I had never been born. He threatened to cut off all communication with the rest of the family if I ever visited my sick brother in the hospital or was otherwise unsupportive, saying that I was a horrible person for ignoring his pain and abandoning him. He waited for me to finish processing all that had happened before hanging up after raving for about 5 minutes. And by the time I finished, he had already ended the call and blocked me. It didn't seem funny at the time, but now I laugh about it because my parents are so determined to make me look bad that they'll yell at me for no good reason and go to extreme lengths to achieve this goal. I've already stated my belief that they were venting their frustrations on me. All they wanted was a way out of court, and I had to continue being there for the family. Nothing to worry about, though, because none of my relatives have bought into my father's plot to set us against one another. Everyone knows I'm not guilty and is aware of what transpired 5 years ago. Now that my brother's health is improving, all I want is for them to stop bothering me and pay attention to him. Update 5. Greetings. Returning to this place after nearly 3 years is rather strange. Much has transpired since then, and most of it has been beneficial. Right now, I'm based in Germany for my job. I've lived here for about 2 years now, and I've recently begun seeing someone. For the last 8 months, my girlfriend and I have been in a very happy relationship. Furthermore, I have maintained minimal communication with my family throughout the last 3 years. If I'm being completely forthright, that has also been wonderful. On the other hand, I have maintained contact with my kind relatives. Despite the fact that it took him a long time to go back to normal after the accident, my brother is currently doing okay. He survived. Upon my brother's recovery, Emily came to see me in an effort to make amends for all that had transpired, but I simply reminded her that an apology was unnecessary at this time. It was on behalf of her and my brother that she came to me after word got out that I was relocating to Germany for employment. She apologized and brought me a flower during our visit. Since nothing had changed in the intervening 8 years, I just informed my brother and sister that I had forgiven them and pretended it didn't matter if they never came to see me. Indeed, I was unconcerned about it as I was progressing towards more favorable circumstances in my life. My parents have stopped communicating with me since I arrived here, and I couldn't be happier about it. I refuse to let anything similar happen again. At last, I am content. I suppose it's time for me to return to my life now that you all know what happened. So many people gave me so much care and love when I was blogging here, and even after I stopped, they kept asking how I was doing in the comments and everything. I'm very grateful to all of you.